I'm going to split this code challenge up into two parts. One for the regular size website, and the second one will be for the mobile. So there are many ways to complete this challenge, and they can all be correct as long as the output is the same. So what I have may be a little different from yours, but as long as the output's the same, then it's correct. And if your output's different from mine, post a link to your pin in the discussion section so we can all check it out and see how you completed this challenge. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create the navigation. And then inside of that, let's do this first. So since this is just going to be a one-page website, I'm not going to worry too much about classes, even though I said that you should give everything a class. But just for this example, on a one-page website with not very much content, it's okay. So we're going to create some styles for the nav. So first, what I want to do is, because we're going to have problems with the margins, I want to apply a CSS reset. And in CodePen, you can go to Settings, you go to CSS, and you can go and select Reset. It also has Normalize too, but I'm just going to use Reset for this example. Now that does not apply the border box, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But you don't have to use border box if you don't want. I'm used to working with border box, so it helps me. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the width to 100%. I'm going to make the height just 50 pixels. We could always adjust it later. And I wanted a border on the bottom. I want it to be 1 pixel, solid red. All right, there we have it. And so now let's add our logo. So we have a paragraph, and I'm going to give it a class of logo. And it's just my website. Okay, let's create a class for that. So logo. And since I'm going to have some other navigation on this, I want it to be on the same line. So I'm going to float this element to the left. And it's also, stuck up here. But first I want to make it the font size that I want it to be, which is probably around 25 pixels. I want it a little bit bigger than that. There, that's good. So now I'm going to bring it where I want it, since it's a little squished in that corner. So I'm going to give it, first I'm going to give it some padding on the left. And let's just say 30 pixels again. Let's see, bring it down to, we'll give it some 4 pixels. That's all right. We might adjust it later whenever we put our navigation up here in the center. So let's go ahead and do that then. What we're going to do then is create an unordered list. And we're just going to have three items. We'll fix that. So one of them is home. Second one is about. The third is contact. So let's fix this first let's change this from being stacked on top of one another to in a line. So we have nav. So what this is I'm selecting the elements, the list items within this, within the navigation unordered list item. So that's a very specific selection, but I mean, of course I could always give it a class. But like I said, in this kind of example where there's not much content, it's okay to select things like this without getting confused. So let's do display inline. Now our items are displayed in a line. Now let's give them a margin to help spread them out. So 50 pixels. We might do a little bit more, but let's first increase the font. Let's make the font, how about 20 pixels? That's about right. So now let's go up one to the unordered list, and we're going to give it a margin left to separate it from this logo, because I want these to be in the center. If I want these to be in the center, I can just go to the nav, and then I can say, actually no, I would go to this one. I would say text align center. That would bring them over, but then the margin's kind of screwing it up. So first I'm just going to bring it down. So let's give it some margin on top. Actually, I don't want the margin, because if I use margin, it might push this down too. It'll push the border down too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use padding. So I'll give it a padding of 16 pixels. Bring it down. See, I'll show you what I'm talking about. It'll push it down. See, I don't want it to push this border down. And the reason it's pushing it down is because, like I said, I'm using border box. So margin's on the outside of the box and padding's on the inside. So if I want the outside, which is this border, to stay within that 50 pixels that I set the height for, I'm going to use a padding and not margin. The logo doesn't look like it's quite in line with that, so I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. And also, again, I'm going to use padding and not margin, because I don't want it to move the height from my navigation height that I set. So this is good enough for now. We might come back and readjust the aligning later depending on the different elements in our page. But before we go, I said I wanted to make it to where when I hover over those, the navigation, it's going to change the background, and it's also going to change the color, and it's going to make the text pop out. So what I do for that, I'm going to select this again, but with the hover attribute, and then I have that color saved, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to copy and paste it in there. So now when I hover over this, it turns white. Why is it turning white? Oh, because I forgot the B. There we go. Okay. Now, the problem here is I want this to be a bigger box whenever I hover over this. So to do that, I can change the padding, because again, remember, the padding is on the inside of the box. So by making the padding, I'm going to increase the red, because if I did the margins, it would be the outside. See, I'll show you. See, now the box is bigger. Now if I change this to margin, it's not going to change the red. See, it's going to be the same size. So I want to use the padding for that. And I also said I wanted the text to be a little bit bigger, so let's do font size. And what did I have it set to? 20 pixels? So let's just make it, I want it to be kind of subtle, so 22 pixels. There, that's good. And I also don't want to go over my border here, so that's perfect. Alright, the next step is to create the section for the content. So we're going to have a section. Okay. And so I had an image and some text. So let's do the image first. And then I have the link from the placeholder saved here in my Evernote. So I'll copy and paste it. We're going to style this in a minute. I'm just going to get all the text done. So I'm going to get some dummy text now. And I'm going to make this paragraph contain the dummy text. Okay. So now let's style the section. So I don't like this being up against the top navigation like this, so we're going to bring this down. We're going to have margin top 100 pixels. That looks better. And then we're also going to have, well, first, let's see, we got to fix, I want to fix this wrapping real quick, because I want the image, I want the text to wrap around the image. I want the image to be on the left. So let's select the image. Let's float it left. There, now we have the text here. So then we're going to give it some margin. We're going to give it margin 10 pixels. Then I also want this to be in line with my text though. So let's just do margin. So I don't want any margin on the top or the bottom. So margin 10 pixels. 10 pixels. Oh, that's good. Okay, now let's fix the paragraph to make the font size a little bit bigger. So section P. And we're going to make the font size 18 is a pretty good font size for reading on a full screen browser. But also to help reading, we want to increase the line height to about 1.5 ems. That looks pretty good.